In this module on sales and sales management, we're going to get into the steps in the creative selling process, and most salespeople will follow through these steps: prospecting, qualifying, pre-approach, approach, presentation, overcoming objections, closing, and follow up. Again, that's prospecting, qualifying, pre-approach, approach, presentation, overcoming objections, closing, and follow up. And let's start with prospecting. When you prospect, you try to generate leads. Now, a lead is a potential customer. A lead is a potential customer, and you've got to start with potential customers or leads. Where can you get leads? Where can you prospect? Lots and lots and lots of places: advertising, direct mail, networking, referrals, cold calling, which a lot of people don't like to do, trade shows. There's lots and lots and lots of ways to generate leads. Now, once you've generated a lead, once you've identified a lead, now you have to qualify that lead. In other words, okay, I have a lead. How good is that potential lead? Qualifying leads is the term for determining how good of a potential customer they might be. Do they have a recognized need? Do they have the ability to buy? Do they have the buying power? Are they receptive to your what you've got to say? Are they accessible? Can you get through them? So you want to qualify those leads. Once you've qualified a lead and said, yes, this is someone that I want to go after, then you need to figure out how to approach the customer. Now, approaching the customer is often called pre-approach. So before you approach, you figure out what it is about them. You do a needs assessment. A needs assessment. Here's what they are all about. You don't want to just go in and say, hey, no matter what your issue is, here's the solution to your problem, what I'm selling. You want to be much more consultative. So when you're interacting with the customer during the approach, that's your very first contact with the customer, and your presentation, that's where you're talking about what you've got. You want this to be much more consultative. So you need to know everything about, obviously, about your product and service, and who other competitors are, in fact, the whole industry, but you really need to understand your customer. You need to understand what your customer is all about. Your customer probably has some reservations about whatever it is that you're selling. We call those objections. And so what good salespeople do is they handle objections or overcome those objections. A good salesperson views objections as a request for more information, because oftentimes an objection can simply be they don't have enough information. Many, many, many objections can be identified in advance, and so you will do that, and you will anticipate specific objections, and then when you get those objections, out will come your pre-crafted response. You definitely need to understand that you're not selling in a vacuum. You've got competitors, and so you need to understand your competitors' products and how they possibly might be of interest to the customer, the prospect, and you need to understand how to position your products competitively vis-a-vis the competitors' products. It's very, very easy to get rattled in a sales presentation when a customer starts bringing up objections. So you need to stay calm and keep trying to move towards the close. ABC, always be closing. So does that sound good to you? Do you think we have a deal? You don't want to ask for the order, and that's a saying that a lot of people will hear. Ask for the order, ask for the order. You don't want to ask for the order until you're pretty sure you're going to get a yes, because if you say, do we have a deal, and then the customer says no, well, then it's kind of hard to come back from that. Trial closing is what that's referred to. Trial closing, trying to get a little bit of momentum toward a yes. Then once you get the yes, we have a deal, you've closed the sale, you don't want to lose the sale with poor follow-up, so you do all necessary follow-up. So those are the key steps in the selling prospect. Prospecting, qualifying, pre-approach, approach, the sales presentation, overcoming objections, trial closing and closing, and then finally follow-up after the fact. Those are the key steps in the selling process. Now let's shift gears and talk about the sales management process, because the sales management process is managing the sales function. The key steps in the sales management process are setting the Salesforce objectives, coming up with the Salesforce strategy, then building the Salesforce, recruiting, training, and rewarding the Salesforce, and finally, how are we doing evaluating the Salesforce? Setting Salesforce objectives is usually pretty easy. And the reason is sales objectives tend to be very, very objective and quantifiable. They are revenues of X, new accounts signed up of Y, gross margin of Z. So sales objectives, more than almost any other functional area, can be very, very objective, no pun intended, and quantifiable. Okay, next step in the sales management process, creating the Salesforce strategy, the structure and size of the firm's Salesforce. This generally won't change year to year, but minor little tweaks are often made to it. The most common methods of sales department organization are geographic, so regional orientation, or by product line. This sales group is in charge of product line A, this sales group is in charge of product line B, and so on. The specific marketing function that's performed. If you're in a B2B selling situation, oftentimes individual markets or industries are separated out. So you're the salesperson who specializes in the medical industry. You're the salesperson who specializes in government accounts. You're the salesperson who specializes in educational accounts, and so on. And of course, you've often got key account responsibility. So you're the salesperson who owns Walmart because you brought Walmart into the fold. You're the salesperson who owns the Pep Boys, because you brought Pep Boys into the fold, and so on. Where do salespeople come from? Well, it's the sales manager's job to get new salespeople into the organization. Recruiting salespeople oftentimes comes from college campuses, people that are just graduating, oftentimes with degrees in marketing. Oftentimes, salespeople are poached or taken from competitors. Sometimes salespeople come from other functional areas within the organization. Salespeople need to be trained. Product training is among the most common type of training because salespeople need to understand what it is that they're selling. Now, with computers, it's very, very easy to set up CBT, computer-based training for product training. Oftentimes, salespeople have to go through the computer-based product training and then take a little test that shows that they actually understood what it was that they were looking at. Salespeople notoriously don't like to spend time on non-essential tasks, and many times they consider training to be a non-essential task because they'd rather be out there selling, because it's selling that actually puts money into their pockets. Speaking of putting money into their pockets, how do you reward salespeople? Well, oftentimes it is financial rewards. Many salespeople have compensation plans that include commission percent, so the more they sell, the more they make, that include a bonus component for hitting specific objectives. Because setting objectives for salespeople is relatively easy, they're kind of quantifiable. Evaluating salespeople is usually pretty easy as well because with very, very specific, objective, quantifiable goals, pretty easy to tell if you've made those goals or not. So in a nutshell, that's what the sales management process is all about.